the government lied and the government stole money from them. Hi, I'm Rick Morton and I'm the senior reporter with the Saturday paper. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week on the podcast. We're doing a robo-debt special.
It does not say that at all. So my view may well be wrong.
The fact is you've got to comply with the law. It's basic.
It simply wasn't in my mind.
Misrepresent things to the Australian public.
We put a lot of work into this because the Robo-Debt Royal Commission is one of the most significant inquiries of the last 3 decades in Australia. And I knew that we needed to drill into the detail to figure out what it says, but also what it means. And to do that, we needed to talk to a few people. And I think it's going to help you, as well as us, understand the big seismic shifts that are coming out of this report. And it's about the way power is delivered in Australia, the way people in poverty are made to administer their own poverty, as Darren O'Donovan says, but also, how little people can fight back with a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of information against the biggest force there is in this country, which is the government, the Commonwealth, particularly when that government lies to them. I think I've been on the robo-debt case now for more than 5 years, which is not as long as some people who were there at the very beginning. But it's one of those cases where you knew something was wrong and you could sort of pinpoint to the ways in which it was being misadministered as a scheme, as a debt compliance measure, but you didn't have proof of what was happening behind the scenes. In fact, the government were very, very keen to never release any information, including information that should have been released under freedom of information laws. They never wanted to get that out the door. And so this scheme kept continuing for years and years and years. And a vast majority of my reporting life now has been spent covering the twists and turns of robo-debt. And then of course we had a Royal Commission where it's all spilled out into the open. And for the very first time, we saw not just documents, but absolute rolled gold proof that they knew. They knew this thing was illegal. They acted to cover it up. They misled other authorities and other agencies within the Commonwealth. And they kept trying to do that, and they would have gotten away with it too, were it not for quite a few determined people. So this week we're going to hear from people as diverse as Dr. Darren O'Donovan, who is one of the most eminent experts on administrative law in the country, particularly when it comes to robo-debt. He really was the chief of staff of this grassroots effort to fight this thing, and they were fighting in darkness for a very long time. We're going to hear from people like Jenny Miller, who was the mother of a young man called Reece Colzo, who killed himself because of the fact that he was being hounded by debt collectors under the robo-debt scheme.
But yeah, he was very distraught when he made that phone call to me.
And we're going to talk about the politics, because you can't divorce an administrative scheme, and it was a scheme, it was a shakedown, it was almost a mafia plot to get money from people. You can't divorce the public service side of things from the overarching politics. And we did have an ideology at play here, which not only gave birth to robo-debt, but also allowed it to fester, allowed it to linger, and allowed people to turn a blind eye, including ordinary people like you and I, who thought, well, maybe Centrelink are just getting those debts back. The debts didn't exist. The politics allowed the cover-up because there was a kind of a weaponisation of shame against people who were affected by robo-debt, and no one really wanted to take their side or take their story. This week, we're going to give that story as much of a voice as we can. And I think it's going to have huge implications for the future, not only of government and the public service, but also how we talk about each other, and certainly how we listen to stories where people have been affected by the decisions of government. Because I think what robo-debt taught us very early on, and it's one of the hardest lessons to learn, is that sometimes you need to listen to people and bear witness to what they're saying, because they might be right. And certainly, finally, we have an answer in this case. They were right. They were telling the truth. The government lied, and the government stole money from them.